Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdarchy Dave, and today I'm joined by the Dead Aussie Gamer. How you doing today, Michael?
G'day, I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me again. Always a pleasure to be here.
Well, thanks for coming on. Getting Aussies on is always difficult because it's like the middle of the night for you folks all the time. And so we have a severe New Zealand Australia deficiency,
Well, see,
on the channel.
that's just because we're positioned on the bottom of the planet, right? And so all the sunlight, it's always daytime up the top, always nighttime down the bottom. I mean, there's very little we can do
Somebody
about it,
should fix
Just,
that. Somebody should just fix
yeah,
that,
get
and
on
it'll all
it,
be good.
NASA.
So you have a really interesting kind of niche path within the RPG community industry. You want to tell people a little bit about yourself before we get into this?
Yeah, no, totally. My name's Michael. I am the Dead Aussie Gamer. I am a performer and entertainer from Perth, Western Australia, who pretty much day in day out will only do things RPG related. It is my full-time job, which involves running games out of my local youth centre for the Australian government, teaching and promoting good role-playing practices with young adults, to my Twitch stream where I put a lot of those things I teach into practice. My YouTube channel where I give a lot of advice, and floating around, I visit channel to channel, playing games, having fun, and getting to know some of the probably the most amazing role players in the world, which is honestly a true pleasure to be able to do. And of course, without excluding, of course, the wonderful people I've gotten to know here at Nerdarchy.
You're a bit of a hired gun too when it comes to RPGs. It's what I would refer to as, and you might have been doing it before, if I'm not sure. The Grant Ellis effect, where you don't necessarily have your own home, but you appear on a lot of other people's stuff. But I mean, you also do have some of your own stuff, but you seem to do more of the guesting on streams than anything.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've definitely spent a way more time on a lot of other people's channels, and honestly, that actually comes down to even the whole reason that I started live streaming or performing online in the first place, and that was Guy Sklanders from How to Be a Great GM. He and I met a few years back and became quite good friends, and he immediately sort of said, "Hey, listen, I need to get you on this stream with me and playing with me." And I said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And we had a great time. And he's like, "You need to have your own channel." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, sure, why not?" And he's like, "You need to go and do this other stuff." And I was like, "Okay, okay." And one thing led to another, and sure enough, I've started going from place to place, group to group, and yeah, playing and gaming with a whole bunch of different people. But yeah, it's all his fault. So if anyone has any beef, just saying how to be a great GM,
Hashtag
go check
blame
out that
guy.
channel. Hashtag blame guy. Yeah, that's it. That guy.
Yeah, and you also play a lot of different systems. You have experience with a lot of different systems, and also which I think you started off with Ask a Pathfinder, right? And then you started playing all these other games, and I guess that just wasn't as relevant anymore.
Well, I've always been into a bunch of different games. And truth be told, even pre Pathfinder, I was very big in D&D 3.5. When Pathfinder, I guess, first sort of came out, there was very little material compared to D&D stuff. So for me, it was just like I would get a lot of people asking me Pathfinder questions. So that's why the whole Ask a Pathfinder even came into being. It wasn't even something that I wanted to do, honestly. It was like a bunch of people who kept asking me questions. I was just sick of repeating myself.
Yeah.
So I made a channel and I said, "Here, just go look at this." Paizo is a wonderful company, of course, and I love all the stuff from there. But around that time, I wasn't really getting much in the way of any kind of support from them. And it was a lot of time that I'd spent, on Pathfinder specifically. When I started kind of seeing the bigger picture and seeing like what you could do and where you could go as a performer on any channel, it kind of became more apparent that I needed to steer away from being associated with Pathfinder and more just become a generic gamer of some kind. So that's kind of what pulled that in. And no sooner than I did that, I was on the D&D official Twitch stream, like within 6 months of that, and I got picked up by the company Weird, which does the Malifaux and Through the Breach game, and I've been promoting their stuff. So it's just been, yeah, it's been absolutely great. Of course, that's not to say if Paizo never ever came knocking at my door that I wouldn't be like, oh, Dead Aussie Gamer presents Ask a Pathfinder could be a thing. Just saying.
It'd totally be a thing. Yeah, why Dead Aussie Gamer? I mean, Aussie and Gamer makes sense to me, but what are you?
Where'd
Are
the
you
dead thing
indeed
come from?
dead?
So, well, I prefer the mortally challenged to start, but the origins of that actually came back to the days of PewDiePie, Markiplier, and all of that. I originally back in the day, before I even got into role playing, I wanted to do video game streams. I wanted to do the whole YouTube thing. Heard that it was a big thing, and I tried. The problem is I am a colossal coward, and I made it very, very, very little progress in these games, and it wasn't very entertaining because unlike these amazing people who play these horror games, constantly talking to the audience, there's me going, and that's all you saw for like an hour, right? So yeah, the Dead Aussie Gamer came because I was always either dead because I was scared out of my mind, dead because the lag from the internet connections here in Australia meant that if you ever were looking at like your squad games, and if you're ever looking for where Michael was, it's always,
Yeah.
oh, the Dead Aussie Gamer. Yeah, that makes sense. It checks out. He's just lying over there. He's dead, and just so yeah, that's where the Dead Aussie Gamer came in
And in those
originally.
games, like the other players are so forgiving too.
Oh, they were absolutely amazing. Oh, mostly because I made them laugh. That was it. That's why people kept me around. It's because I made them laugh. And
I was being
oh,
facetious. I was just thinking back to my days playing League of Legends, and how often I'm reporting you. I'm reporting you. You're getting reported for sucking.
oh man, yeah, those ones were awesome. I remember there was this one game that I played way back when, which was basically it's like Counter Strike, but it was called America's Army. Uh, it was a very elitist sort of game. And the fact that I was Australian was a highly contentious point when it came to playing matches. Get out of here, you dirty Australian, yada yada yada. This is America's Army, America, and all that.
America.
Um,
Oh no,
so
not the
yeah,
Aussie hate.
I know, right? I mean,
You guys got
what beef do you
koalas
have with
and
this guy?
kangaroos and wallabies. Like, how can you hate
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah. That's probably the one of the best things is like you really got to stretch to find something to pick on with the Aussies, because we make fun of ourselves like so hard.
Have you ever been attacked by a kangaroo?
I've been chased by one. Yes. It
They're
was.
bastards, from what I understand.
Oh well. Okay. So from where I am, so I'm on the west coast.
Yeah,
And to be honest, kangaroos from this area are pretty chill. The ones you want to watch out for are a little bit more central, and they're kind of the big reds. We get the gray kangaroos for the most part, and they're literally like in the city and like in the suburbs, in certain places. Um, but yeah, as long as you don't go piss them off, and as long as they don't have like a Joey and you're too close, they're pretty chill. But this one incident, we were down south for like a medieval fair type thing, and we were staying at this kind of rural farmy kind of area. And the kangaroos, the emus, all the wildlife knew that the tourists, when they come in, they like to go, oh, look at the cute little kangaroo, and they get fed and all that. Whereas
yeah,
the locals are like, no, we're gonna nail the bin shut because you bloody mongrels can't stay out of it, you know.
yeah.
So we being the locals, right? We were getting ready to head out in the morning, which is when kangaroos were running around. I We were loading up the car, and as soon as we did, a mob of kangaroos started, chasing after my missus. Now they weren't angry or they weren't aggressive. They were just like kind of clawing, trying to get at the food that we were loading into the car. And eventually we started flinging out bits of sliced bread to kind of get them away from the car long enough for us to, to get in.
To make a
And yeah,
getaway.
yeah, and these kangaroos just had, like definitely wanted more, and they were just like chasing us up and down this backyard of this place. We did, however, manage to safely get away before the emus showed up. Because yeah, emus are a whole other kind of bastard.
I mean, you guys lost the whole war to them, right?
We lost two wars. We lost two wars. And yeah, we did. And that's not a lie. Google that.
That's totally a thing. That's hilarious. And that's definitely something that should find its way into a D&D game. Up north from where I am, we've got black bears. Um, so they sometimes have problems with them. Where I'm at, not too much. Occasionally, a bear will wander south, but we don't really have to deal with it too much. I'm playing in a Saturday morning game, and I'm playing an artificer that has a mechanical kangaroo, and he's a gnome and he rides in the pouch. But something came up. Oh, there was a lake, and I was like, so I googled "can kangaroos swim?" And like before I could even get to the, I think it was like something kangaroos, and like one of the first things was like, will a kangaroo drown you? Like it auto-filled. So apparently, like lots of people
Yep.
are searching for this. And I was like, I totally forgot what I was doing. I was like, and decided to check that out instead. And it turns out kangaroos are good swimmers, and they will try and lure you into water so they can drown you.
Yep. Yep, 100%. So it's very interesting, the kind of education system that differs between different countries. For us in particular, we get the notification of like if you see a kangaroo staring at you in waist-high water to it, don't go anywhere near it because it is waiting for you so it can drown you. Flat out. Every like preschoolers know not to do that.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
trap.
yeah, yeah, it's a trap. That's literally it. And yeah, it's terrifying,
What the f
because
is
they're
wrong
really
with
good at
them?
it. Oh man, it's because people like back in like the early like 60s and 70s, used to take up like kangaroo boxing. Like that was
Oh
a
yeah, yeah.
that was one of those made up sports where they put boxing gloves and a kangaroo and they sort of, oh look, they look like they're boxing, aren't they cute? Yeah, they never forgot ever.
They hold a grudge.
To hold a grudge. They're like, oh yeah, no, we're not boxers, we're grapplers. Come on in. The water's fine.
So what are you playing nowadays?
And nowadays, yeah, much less the same. I'm playing a lot of D&D at the moment. Pathfinder Second Edition, finally. Um, a friend of mine from the podcast Nothing Ventured, Nothing Gamed has offered to very graciously run us through Rise of the Rune Lords, but converting the entire module into Pathfinder Second Edition. So that's actually a lot of fun. Mostly because it's one of my favorite Pathfinder adventures of all times, but also because like the interesting thing is I actually run in so many different games that I very rarely get a chance to pick the game that I want to be in. Like it'll
Yeah.
always be a case of, hey Mike, do you want to go play this game? And I'm like, yeah, sure. But I don't often get a chance to go, hey, I want to play Second Edition. Who wants to GM for me? So Jared stepped up to the plate on that, and we've had like an amazing game filled with some amazing and wondrous people. We've got Dawn from Roll for Initiative. We have Carla Harris from Dum Dum Dice. We have we have a Twitch streamer, Becca Godzi from Caustic Phoenix, and then myself as the players of this group. And we've just done some really silly stuff. Like I feel like at some point or another, my character was at a wedding. Next thing he knows, he's like burning down an insane asylum because a flesh golem has gone out of control. And I also, so I'm playing an inventor from the playtest, which I have right here.
Ooh.
Um,
Burning down the insane
and
asylum seems like a little bit of an overreaction.
you'd think that. That's all I'm gonna say. You'd think that it wasn't our first choice. It just got to the point where it was just like, well, I guess we're burning this place down.
Mm.
No, it was a lot of fun, and yeah, actually, it's also really interesting because having run Rise of the Rune Lords myself, getting to see how different Second Edition makes, how different playing in Second Edition makes the actual adventure itself is actually a treat. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah, and all of that's saved on a secret YouTube channel. I don't tell people about it because I'm so bad at promoting my own stuff. But I have the Dead Aussie Gamer live channel. I kind of followed people that I really admired who kind of had their main channel and then did a live channel separate to that, little
Yeah.
quiet one. So yeah, it's a really cool idea. So I did that myself. So there is actually a Dead Aussie Gamer live channel where all of those Rise of the Rune Lord episodes are at. So yeah, it's really cool.
Nice.
Uh,
I'll
yeah.
have to put that in the description for you because as always, folks, we like to get
Oh,
some links in the description so you can go follow the guest around.
oh well, you know what? It's really weird. It's so hard to follow me around because, like you said, I'm everywhere. I'm on so many people's channels. Like recently, actually, we just wrapped up the Talisman RPG from Pegasus Spiel. I imagine you've played the board game Talisman.
I've not.
You've not.
I don't
It's
think
a
so.
lot of
No.
fun. Yeah, I actually played it as game prep for the role playing game.
Okay.
But yeah, it's an older game. It's kind of like a GM-less role playing dungeon delve type game with a bunch of very interesting characters and stuff that you can play. I played a ghoul assassin who is an Irishman named Sidon, and he was a chef. And it was really funny because I thought if I'm going to play a ghoul who goes around eating people, right? I want to be really pretentious about it. Like I don't want to just sort of like, someone sort of said, "Oh, Sid, are you going to eat that corpse?" I'm like, if I made you a sandwich and dropped it on the floor and then said, "You eat that," what do you reckon? No, I'm not going to eat that body that's lying, rotting on the floor. That's why, I'm an assassin. I kill people in a clean space and environment, and I cook, and I have a special glazing sauce. Go the whole 9 yards.
A,
Because
a
ghouls
connoisseur.
exactly, yeah. Ghouls can eat bodies, but they can have taste. Just
Yeah.
saying.
Your second channel is hard to find. You're not lying.
Yes, it is. I'm not lying. It is. It is such a well. I mean, it's a tiny. It's so little and so tiny.
You do you know on
it,
your main channel you have a place called channels just where you could put that so people could accidentally find it.
I do now. But it's fine. It was kind of like a I guess it was kind of a side thought because I mean we were talking about this earlier on. Like right now a lot of my stuff is on Twitch. Which has been great and it's been very kind because I think on Twitch there's definitely a lot more encouragement for things like audience support. And for a lot of my
Yeah.
games, I actually have a lot of audience participation, which I love in games. As much as I think being too popular or having too many audience members would overwhelm me, having the amount that I have means that little donations actually go to making changes in the game. Like we actually have random plot twists, which I actually use, which come from like a deck of cards, and then we just like flick them out and like, cool, we got random plot twist, which is sanity check. So some Call of Cthulhu type nonsense suddenly shows up and does stuff.
Do you have a
Or
particular deck that you use?
I have the Paizo one. So
Okay.
Paizo's got two decks from Pathfinder First Edition. One's like a plot twist one, and the other one's a flashback one.
Okay.
So those cards are just really good story prompts. But recently, I did a Kickstarter for a another storyboarding kind of construct builder type thing with tiles. I wish I knew the name of it so I could promote them because it is actually rather cool and fun. Um, and I haven't figured out how to use it live, but it's really cool. It's very cool.
It's coming
Story
coming to
prompts.
a game near you soon.
There you go. So yeah, so which is why I think things like the Dead Aussie Gamer live channel is just kind of like it's there, it's doing its own thing. It's just it's a nice little catalog. So if anyone asks me like, hey, where can we catch your Curse of Strahd game? It's like cool, here's the link, boom, and I'll make like a playlist that I'll share with links to all those videos.
Nice. Makes
Yeah,
it easier, especially when when you're a hired gun like you are. What is your what
absolutely.
game do you prefer to run, or does it matter
Ooh,
to you?
okay. You know what? If I'm being dead honest, like full serious here, for me,
You can lie to
I
me if
am
you like. Well, whatever floats your boat, man.
I'm a people pleaser. I love pairing off the right table with the right game. Nothing pleases me more than knowing the things my players absolutely love and giving it to them in spades. Like if people like really love sci-fi, for example, right? And I get a group of people that have that like-mindedness, and then they tell me that they're really into Star Trek, you know, then I want to lean into a game system that's going to really, kind of highlight that for those guys. So I don't really have a game system I prefer to run. But in terms of what I prefer, if anything else, it would be what my players are going to just lose their mind over. It might be D&D, it might not be. It might be it might be the Dune role-playing game. It might be Through the Loop or Kids on Bikes, whatever it happens to be. I want to be able to show and play these games with people, just to get the best out of both my story, my players' enjoyment, and yeah, to make something memorable. Because I don't know. I mean, in the back of my head, I always think, with my schedule, with, life being what it is, I'll only ever have so many games in my life to be able to run. So every game I run, I want to be my best.
Do you have a genre preference?
Mm, horror. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. No, I can scare the absolute crap out of people, and I love it. Because role playing is about evoking feelings and stories and emotions, right? And I don't know, maybe it's just me. Um, it's very easy for a lot of genres to lean into comedy. When you're having fun, it's a game, you're playing around. There's laughter, there's always the kind of little aside jokes that always happen, and that's great. But horror evokes something deep and primal, I think, within a lot of players. You get to a point where you get the right soundscape and you kind of start playing that music going, you've got that kind of chill that runs down the back of your neck. You see people shudder at the table as you're describing scenes. You get so much out of horror, and that's why it's probably one of my favorite genres to GM. Because yeah, it's just so deep.
What do you think the best system is for conveying a horror game?
Oh, you know what's really weird? I will say that the best game for conveying a horror system would definitely be Call of Cthulhu.
That doesn't
For
sound
this,
weird at all.
well, I know, right? It's like so bizarre. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Um, but weirdly enough, not because of the very rich and deep lore, but because of the fragility of the players. And I would say that any game that has a system where a bullet wound it feels like a real bullet wound, like two shots and you're like in critical peril,
In
right?
my mind, you're
Uh,
pulling out a gun at the table and just shooting a player.
yeah, right.
Felt
Any of
real,
those
didn't
games,
it?
yeah. Any of those games absolutely lend itself to a good and wonderful horror game. Um, Yeah, that would probably be my top pick would be Call of Cthulhu.
What do you think the hardest game is to run horror in?
So D&D, hands
Hands
down,
down. Yeah.
hands down D&D. Mostly because D&D. So D&D, and these kind of like high fantasy kind of potential games.
Yeah.
Um, the trouble is big numbers don't equal horror. But in a context where like every level you gain hit points, one like for example, like to get a slash from a sword, you can kind of shrug it off and you're still functioning at full capacity in these kinds of games. When you have a monster like, say, a xenomorph sort of crawling through the air vents and stuff like that, being able to cast fireball to incinerate the massive 30-foot radius that thing used to be in, it makes it very difficult. Have you ever played the game Fatal Frame?
I have not. I haven't even heard of it.
Fatal Frame was a very old Japanese video game where you were basically a guy investigating this kind of like haunted Japanese estate, and there were ghosts literally everywhere. You had no weapon, you only had a flashlight, and the only means of defending yourself was with a Polaroid camera. And in order to protect yourself, you had to take a photo of the ghost when it was in frame and right next to you. If you clicked it too late, it would take ages for it to wind up, and this thing would just be on you. Likewise, if you were out of frame and it was right next to you, yeah, you're gone.
That sounds like the
Um,
worst weapon ever.
But that's what adds to the horror is the
Yeah.
sense of
Oh man.
I guess fragility of your life is
Yeah.
that's the necessity for it. If I was going to play like a D&D game in that same, I would say you would have your hit points at level 1 and you'd still level up, you'd get all your powers and stuff like that, but you only ever keep your hit points at your level 1 hit points. That would be how I would try to recreate that sense of mortal peril.
Have you played earlier editions like first and second?
I've played second edition like once.
Yeah. It'd be a
And
little
yeah.
bit easier with those editions, just because the
Mm.
characters were more fragile than they've become over the years. So what was the first RPG you played? Rivers RPG wanted to know.
3.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3.0, 3.5. Yeah, those were my very, very first ones. So they were definitely the hero type. But I one thing I've always wanted to be in, and by the way, this goes to everyone in the audience. If anyone's running this game, let me know. I really, really, really want someone to play for me to play in Labyrinth of Madness. Um, from what I've heard, rumors on the street, is it is one of the most notoriously difficult dungeons to complete, mostly because there was actually a printing error in it, and some of the vital clues to survive weren't actually published.
Oops.
Yeah, it's a big oops. So there's actually lots and lots and lots of death. It has since been like errated to like include that information,
Yeah.
but I'm kind of one of those guys. I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm like, man, I really
You want to
love
play the
an
broken
opportunity.
version?
I want to play the broken version. I want to see if I can get through. And it
Yeah.
had like traps were so good in like the first and second edition. It's like, yeah, cool. The ceiling falls on you. All right, how many d6 damage do I take? You sweet summer child. Your character is dead.
Also, like, I feel like first and second were kind of notorious for like putting something in there to intrigue your interest as a player and as a character that was
Mm.
totally irrelevant, and like you would have to work really hard to solve this puzzle, and its only purpose was like to murder you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the troll was really hard on that one.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah,
Like I mean, the classic and the most iconic is probably is the devil face, right, with the sphere of annihilation in the mouth. Uh,
yep.
and I know, like, it's just so tempting to like what's going on there, and then before you know it, someone's going to crawl into the mouth and get off.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think one of my favorite ones from that era was a staircase that when you stepped on it would turn into a slide and then would slide you into a room that was filled with ice, and then the door would immediately slam shut with no door handles or anything. The actual answer is to not go down the staircase. And the temperature dropped by like 1 degree every 10 seconds. And that was it. There was no other description to the room. There was no other thing to do. It's just, well, I guess I'm dead. Like, that's it. It's like, yeah, you freeze to death because that's
That's when
just
you
what
have to
happened.
fight. You have to fireball yourself to melt the ice.
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, I think I used that puzzle in one of the later editions, and it was very sad because all they did was like, oh, cool, I'll just meld into stone and then walk out the other side. I was like,
Yeah. Well, I felt like the earlier editions were more about challenging the players, and the later editions are more about challenging the characters. Um,
yeah, no, absolutely.
that's why
For
you
me,
needed.
actually, that's actually a really good point. I think as the ages kind of passed with D&D, I think the first one was very much about creating that sense of like the Tolkien-esque kind of adventure, that kind of sense of dread, this world building that was very rich. And then as we got into the second one, it kind of kept expanding in that same space, becoming more wider and more broad. When we hit 3.5, we saw things starting to go towards building characters and adding versatility. And now when we head into, well, I say fourth edition tentatively, but I'm going to cough over it, and go into fifth edition. I feel like a lot of emphasis is now in performance, in role play, in like taking what you have, which has great and core fundamentals, and being able to create very deep, meaningful, and interactive elements for the players to be able to interact with everything around them. Um, not to badmouth any particular individuals from the early days, but a dwarf could for I think in first edition could only ever be a fighter. So there were only limited stories of like, the dwarves that you could make. But it wasn't until later on where now dwarves can use magic and they can do all sorts of really cool things. And then there are also these different species of dwarfs who have these different personality traits and different cultural traits. As this world has opened up, we now, as players, can reach in and just drag such great stories and characterizations out of the stuff that the predecessors have built as a foundation, and what all those new creators from all over the world, not just the Wizards of the Coast guys, but all of the D&D Beyond people, the DM's Guild, all the different places that we see all that content coming in, just allows us to make more and more unique characters in this kind of game we love.
Yeah, it's definitely shifted to a more narrative base, and mechanics have worked to support that a bit more than they did in the past, where you were very limited in what you could do or could play, and you know uh, multi-classing and dual classing, and it was all very strange and weird and overly convoluted for the most part. But
Oh
like
yeah.
everything, it has evolved since then. So, do you
Absolutely.
prefer running games or being a player?
Ooh, that's a good question. Much like my previous very flaky answer, I'm gonna throw this down to relying on who I'm playing with. Um, Honestly, I love playing. I love being able to get into the mindset of a character. Everything about me is an actor. I love performing. I love entertaining, and one of the things that makes me enjoy GMing is not so much prepping games and writing a story and running it, but playing the characters within that world. Almost like an improv scene. Like those are my favorite moments GMing. So if a base was being looked at, being a player. That being said, there are certain people who I must GM for. You know, like there are people like yourself, Dave. Like the Christmas game that we played a couple years back. That was a kind of like a must moment. Like there's just like a no, I don't want to. I mean, as much as I'd love to play in a game with certain people, there are some people who I'm just like, no, I must GM for this person. I must put my best foot forward and produce this thing that's going to be just fun, and it's going to draw the best out of me, and then them being in that scenario is going to draw everything I have to make to enjoy making this amazing concoction. So there's definitely moments where GMing becomes hands down like my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I believe we played as Christmas toys.
You played
Yeah.
as a bunch of Christmas toys, and you and Ted, for whatever reason, because I gave you guys a choice of pre-generated toys.
Yeah.
For some reason, just I don't know why you chose to play the teddy bear,
Yeah, the teddy bear
and
was fun.
I think Ted got to play
Jack in the
the
Box, maybe.
Jack. Yeah, the Jack. No, no, I wasn't. I think Phil was the Jack in the Box. I think Ted was the puppet with the sewing needle. Um, Yeah, and yeah, so and which made it even harder for me because I was sitting there calling you Ted this whole during the whole
Yeah, because of the
during
teddy
the
bear
whole
guy.
game. So that was tricky, but fun. And Phil, who was one of the other players, he's an opera singer. I think to this day, one of my favorite moments was giving you guys the one horse open sleigh in that game,
Yeah.
and it was powered by Christmas carols, and you were running from this explosion of like uh Coke and Mentos that had just erupted from this lake, and there's Phil sweating bullets going dashing through the snow with a one horse open sleigh. All the fields we go, laughing all the way. He's like basically crying as you're running away from this explosion.
Good
Oh
times.
man, no, still one of my favorite moments of all time. But yeah, that's a perfect example of where I'm like, no, that's a game I was so pleased and so happy and honored to be GMing.
How did your monster game go? Like, I think the last time, it was been years, I feel like now at this point. The last time I had you on, oh maybe but wasn't yours, but it feels like it. Um,
Could be.
you were getting ready to run like a monster game.
Yeah, so Minion Quest. That was
Minion
the
Quest.
that was
That's
the
it.
that was the latest one. We ended up with two seasons of Minion Quest. And it was actually phenomenal. People enjoyed that incredibly thoroughly. The players were awesome. There most of which were locals from Perth as well. And I think the greatest things to come out of it were no one took it too seriously. Everything about it was just tongue in cheek. Like the way that they would treat the encounters that I dealt with were just so like out of the box when it came to it. We had a scenario where the group was being warned by a scout from the far north who was a dire wolf, and so this orc, a revenant, a manticore, and a gripply or a grung were kind of like chasing after these two bandits who had stolen something from them, and this massive dire wolf shows up, and he's like, oh man, I'm famished, thanks, I'm gonna eat these two bandits, and for whatever reason, the group then decides, no, you can't eat these bandits. And the wolf's like, yeah, I can, get the hell out of my way. And one thing led to another. The bandits who had set up like this pit trap filled with tar, um, our barbarian, who is an orc, grabs this wolf, dive bombs into this pit trap. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, you what now? It's like, yeah, I grabbed the dire wolf and I'm diving it into I'm like, oh my God. Okay, yeah, I guess this guy was here to like, talk about a peaceful alliance between the vampires to the north and your monsters to the south. But I guess instead you're going into a spike pit filled with tar. And things led to another. They ended up throwing feathers into it to tar and feather it. And the character, the orc, crawls himself up, and he is thus proclaimed to be Chicken Brick because his name was Brick. So he's covered in feathers, and I'm just sitting there, just gobsmacked, have no idea where my story turned very quickly sideways. Wasn't the encounter I planned, but it was
They're the
just
best games. That's how it goes.
exactly,
It's not
exactly,
the
and it was
encounter you planned. It was the encounter you deserved, though.
yep, 100%. And it was two seasons of this kind of like just absolutely amazing role playing. Which of course is on the Dead Aussie Gamer live channel. Well,
That
season
you
one
will
is
never
season
ever be able to find.
that you'll never find. No one will find it. Although now that Dave's told me that I can highlight it onto my usual channel, I think it should be a lot easier to find now. But yes. So yeah, season one's up there now. Season two will also be up there soon. We took a bit of a break because one of our cast members became unavailable due to a wonderful bundle of joy that they now are thoroughly lavishing with love and sentiments. Which Tabitha, if you're watching, much love. But we also did another anthropomorphized animal game set in the same world called Winds of Wilderon, which also on the Dead Aussie Gamer live channel, which was a ton of fun as well. And it was about a group of anthropomorphized animals in this kind of King Arthur story where the mammoths who had been kept behind this big wall um, had broken through and started invading the more fertile lands to the south. And the group had to, go talk to the wise owls at the top of the big mountain to figure out how to get rid of them. Yeah, it was a lot of fun on that game, and I had Aiden from Aiden. I feel like that's the only thing who does like animated RPG cartoons, like little sketch comedy things.
Uh,
He was on it, and yeah, was a riot, an absolute riot. Yeah.
was that your first foray into the all Aussie streams?
The Minion Quest was the Winter Wilderrun was an international one, but I did want it to be an Aussie one. But yeah, it was actually my first foray into a full Aussie stream. At the time, I actually there were a couple of Aussie groups out there, but not too many that I'd really kind of connected with. As of recently, though, I've made three, actually, I should say, three very strong connections with some Aussie streamers and stuff who have just been an absolute blast to play with. We get up to so much mischief. The first is a guy by the name of Heath. He is known as the Anti-Podium D20. Um, he's reasonably well known around different circles, and he does like these really cool little Facebook chats, and just talking about life and role playing games and stuff. And he's a very cool dude. Um, yeah, he actually invited me to help out with GaryCon this year for the Aussie takeover, which went absolutely phenomenally. And not surprisingly, during the times that we were streaming, not to brag, but we were definitely top audience numbers for that time slot because we were amazing, of course, Aussies.
Of course.
Uh,
So there's a video game streamer. He used to stream. I know that he used to stream a lot of Overwatch. But I only know because they had commented on our videos a while ago, and we had some interactions with them, and we wanted to try and do something, but as you well know, the Australian U.S. time zones just do not match up very well. So Tierodin is a channel, and I believe he's in Australia as
oh,
well.
Tierden, that sounds super familiar.
Yeah, I probably mentioned it every time. But yeah, he's got a pretty big YouTube channel and a Twitch presence
Oh
as
yeah,
well. I
yeah,
think.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely know this dude.
Yeah.
Mm. Well,
In
I
case
don't
you
know him personally. I
know
yeah.
of, yeah. In case you need a pagan in your game as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm always keen to find people, especially fellow Aussies who are excited to do some role playing and the like. But yeah, no, I know this guy. I definitely know that guy.
Uh,
Um,
so what's coming up next? What do you got your sights on in the near future?
so right now, I'm in my very nice little quiet period. We finished Talisman with How to Be a Great GM. I finished Forbidden Lands with Freely Publishing and Orkenspalter TV, which is a German company. So I'm on a little bit of a quiet streak at the moment, setting up for my next big few projects. But I'm planning some shenanigans with two very good friends of mine. The first is the dreaded GM, who is like seriously like the most wholesome individual I've ever met. He runs a amazing Australian stream. He and I we've done a few games together, and we've started doing a series of holiday themed games, where I've managed to play a character called Flint, who has become the King of Valentine. He's a warforged gunslinger. So instead of shooting people with love heart, bow and arrow, I fall in love and gun people down with love. So yeah.
As you do.
And the second individual is Robert Hartley, GM, who have you heard of Viva La Dirt League?
I have not.
So Viva La Dirt League are a group of New Zealand sketch comedy writers. They make a bunch of really amazing stuff. Greg the Garlic Farmer, Bored at Work, a bunch of these amazing shows. And he is actually the GM for those guys. So we've gotten in contact, and the three of us have just started just working closely together on a bunch of different projects. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the next few months we end up announcing a couple of either big or small or kind of short one shots, or even campaigns later on down the track. But yeah, the three of us we kind of met over the last, I want to say, 6 to 8 months, and yeah, we're getting on like a house on fire. So super keen to do stuff with these guys and kind of make like an Aussie contingent.
You're building it.
Yeah,
Build it.
that's it. Building up.
When you
Because
guys were
that's
doing the Aussie games, did you find a lot of people from Australia were tuning in and watching?
um from Australia. Yeah, there's always people from Australia. I find that a lot more people from either the US who are like the night owls,
Yeah.
and a lot of people from Germany, at least in my experience, they're the guys who for the most part will come check out my stuff. Um, Uh, Rob, who's in New Zealand, does a lot of stuff in the mornings, which of course coincides with, um, you know, American mainstreaming time. So, a lot of the Americans and stuff like that are with Rob and uh, Dread, who comes from over east, which is the other side of Australia to me. Finds a lot of the Australians because he's at like in our sweet spot of time zones. But yeah, I think between the three of us, a lot of it is in the US. A small portion are Australian, and then another giant chunk would be Europe.
Yeah, the U.S. is still like, I mean, on all the analytics, it always shows up at the top.
Yep.
For demographics, and also, I guess we were talking about this a little bit before we even got live, as it being kind of like an American thing anyway, or at least origination. Now it's very popular all over the world. But I do have a friend that would talk about it as like would call it Americana, like kind of like baseball, and other things that are kind of originated here, um, which would be really cool to see it get that kind of status because I don't
Oh
really
yeah.
care about baseball. But
Well, well, I mean, when it comes to it, I think one of the interesting things is role-playing games really kind of took off with America as a starting platform and has spread so thoroughly worldwide. Um, like with any kind of, splash weapon, as it were, you're going to deal
yeah,
the most damage to the central point. So in the same way, RPGs in America is just such a big thing, like even for a niche market that it is. So many people love role-playing games, and even around the world, still has robust role-playing game communities. But yeah, America is definitely the big massive epicenter of a lot of stuff. I know that I know that every time I stream in an American time slot, I'll get like 20, 30 more views than I would if I ran it which is like 5 hours ago, which is
yeah.
my prime time. I'm like, yeah, I'll have like a person speaking Russian to me. I'm like, yes, I'm sorry, I don't speak Russian, but welcome to my chat. We love you.
Yeah, yeah. Why are you watching? Why are you watching this if you don't speak
Oh,
English?
look, with my follower count, I never ask why people are watching. I'm just like,
Yeah,
thank you,
yeah.
thank you.
I mean the streaming thing is really taking off and people are really flocking to the hobby. It was always been weird when we would like do one of the live streams and it would be like an out of the way place and you'd have like several people like or chiming in. I'm like, what time is it even there? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
you get
Oh,
the night owls from all over the place. Well,
yeah.
like
I think that's
yourself.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like that's how you and I ended up becoming acquainted, was like, super, super late night chats and just having a gab about these sorts of things. But um we live in a world where everything is intercommunicated now. It doesn't matter if you where you come from or where you go. Entertainment and media is always readily available and you can engage in this sort of stuff. I mean this, with as much love and respect as I can hold. COVID has been awful, worldwide. But when it comes to things like the role-playing game scene, seeing how many people have started like the virtual cons and stuff like that, and big like started to realize just how important an online presence has become, there's just been such a positive surge in what should really have already been like a major thing. You know what I mean? Like yeah, coming from Australia, it cost me an arm and a leg to get to the States for conventions and stuff. But being able to still meet up with people, engage and perform and talk about conventions and stuff. Yeah, it's been a treat to be able to be involved in so many different virtual conventions.
Not just the cost though, like the time to fly, like being trapped in a tin can in the air. What is it, like 16, 18 hours, something ridiculous.
Oh man, I
Brutal.
want to say, hold on, wait. I want to say, what was my flight? My flight was, no, it can't have been, must have been. I want to say it was like 32 hours was my flight from here to Gen Con in 2019. Um
How many
and ever
layovers
since
was that?
I went from I went from Perth to Sydney, Sydney to LA, LA to Dallas, Dallas to Indianapolis.
Oh my god.
I
Yeah.
hate I love the people from Dallas. I hated Dallas. Holy
Yeah.
crap, that airport. It made me feel like I was in tower defense games. You know what I mean? Like I was just
Yeah.
like I was just like people just pinging off and shooting us as we're just going up and down this massive serpentine trying to get through customs. I was like, oh my God. And they
That
made me take off my
sounds
shoes.
yeah.
That was a whole thing. I'm like, are you sure?
That's how we fight
Because the
terrorism here.
yeah, I was gonna say the well, well, see, because my feet are weapons of mass destruction. I would definitely not
Yeah.
want to advise. I would advise strongly against you telling me to take off my shoes. But no, no, it was no, it was
Yeah.
yeah. The travel time was another thing. Um, although you do get to meet some interesting folk. That was actually where I got to have a very nice and awesome conversation with Mark Morrison from Campaign Coins and Chaosium, because he's a fellow Aussie. And when I was coming back from Gen Con, he was on the same flight along with another friend of his, Jackson, and we talked for hours. It was great, you know. I mean, it sucked that we were there 4 hours,
Yeah.
but you know, no, it was really good. So there is at least a little bit of camaraderie there if you can, you know, kind of get the right schedules lined up for things like
So
travel.
you got to tour plenty of airports.
I did. I got to see lots of airports. Okay. Look, I'm gonna be honest. I really wanted to see LA,
Yeah.
but everyone told me that you do not have the money to see LA when I went for my trip, and I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. So, so the next time I go, I'm definitely planning on taking a bit more time to appreciate America and the sights. Because everyone said, you know, oh, you need to take photos of Indianapolis. I'm like, I have no idea what Indianapolis is like. Monuments is a thing. I We don't have that in Perth where I live.
Yeah.
Like something so big I couldn't take a photo of it. That's too big. That's just it's too big. I mean, I get it. It's a war memorial. I understand it. It's massive. It's so big. It's the middle of a roundabout. It's beautiful. But if I have to like travel 3 blocks and get onto the roof of a building to get a full shot of it on my camera, right? That's too big. It's far too big.
He just it certainly is with that attitude. But yeah, well, you do have you met Gareth from DMG Info?
I haven't met him. I am aware of Gareth.
Yeah, so he's a crafter and he's in Australia now and from South Africa. And when, you know, every time he comes to the States, he like flies into the opposite side that he's going to so that he can drive across country and like experience the country, you know, as he does. I
See,
mean,
that's a cool idea.
I
I
it's ambitious,
Yeah.
that's for sure. But
Oh yeah. So that same year that I went, Guy had done the same thing. Like he had, you
oh
know,
yeah,
arrived
yeah.
in. Yeah, he'd done the big tour, and he was telling me about how he
Well,
was
he
like how
came and stayed for like several months, right?
he did, yeah.
Yeah.
And he was telling me about how he created a role playing game to play in the car, something that used like minimal dice, so you could
Yeah.
play it while you were driving. And I was like, of course you would. Like, I mean, you know, like look outside, look at how beautiful it is. No, Xanthor takes his sword and stabs the dragon. You know, yeah, okay, fair enough. Just, yeah.
It's a great idea. Just find one of your fans and show up their house and just don't leave.
Yeah, that's right. Oh,
It's
you
like
know what?
a chance to win the
I,
worst competition ever.
so I didn't tell you this, but yeah. So on that note, so Guy during that year had that contest, to go to Gen Con and have these two fans join us for the stay. Now they were amazing. They were so much fun. I got on with these guys like a house on fire, and I had never met a fan before. Like, no joke. Gen Con never, like, Perth, no one knows me, right? But when I went to Gen Con, everyone, you know, sort of recognized me. You know, people coming up and asking for photographs and stuff like that, which blew my mind because my follower count was lower than it is right now, which, right. So, So these two guys came up and they were like, "Oh my God, Michael, we love your stuff. We've been following you since you first showed up on Guy's channel. Oh, we loved when you did this. We love when you did that." I was like, "Great, no, this is fantastic." And they were like so excited to do stuff. And I had been there for 2 hours before Guy and the entourage arrived. And I said, "Hey, who wants to play some role-playing games?" And I did. And they were like so excited. It was almost like, a kid in a candy store. They're like, "Yes, oh my God, yes." What they didn't realize is who they were messing with. And so as I started playing games with them, like remembering that Gen Con was the next morning, it's like 3 in the morning and I'm running on 3 p.m. energy.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're just like, "Michael, go to bed." And I'm like, "Well, okay." That luster definitely shone off very quickly as they realized the kind of lunatic I am.
It happens. It happens. Like my
Yeah.
first Gen Con, we like decided to go. It was like me, my son, and Nerdator Doug, and we didn't really have much of a plan. And it can be hard to get lodging for Gen Con. So we were just like, hey, if anyone wants to have Nerdarchy sleep on your floor, let us know. That was like our first Gen Con experience. We just
Nice.
crashed on a random fan's floor, which is cool because we still talk to him from time to time, which is really cool, and try and meet up with him at other conventions. So uh, and it is that the time where you get to meet the people that who've been following you. Like you said, it is still so weird when people like recognize you and
Oh,
like you said, sign this thing that I had nothing to do with, or take a picture.
all right, I'm gonna blow your mind, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I didn't have a schedule really, right? Like when I went to Gen Con because I was again much like much of my career. Guy was oh, it would be a real shame if you were the only person who didn't come to Gen Con this year. And I'm like, "Oh yeah, thanks, man." Nah, next thing I know, I'm buying a ticket to America. Um, so I had a couple of panels and I had a couple of games, which was great. And what one of the like this pair of fans came on behalf of a fan who couldn't make it to Gen Con, and they had with them this little dude,
Oh, nice.
which
They made a
has
voodoo doll of you.
they made which everyone says is really creepy. I was really touched. I was like, "Oh my God, like this is like the most adorable thing in the world." And they said, "Oh, we were wondering if we can take a picture of it for the fan." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And I took the photo and I gave it back to them. It's like, "No, no, no, that's yours to keep." And I that never crossed my mind. Like I was
Yeah,
like, someone made this just to take a photo with me, and then that was it. Like they wanted like a memento of like something I had been in the presence of. I don't know. I don't know how this stuff works, man.
I don't know
But I
either.
keep
Like people are giving
that.
you stuff, but you feel like you should be giving them something instead.
Yeah, right. That's it. That's how I feel.
Yeah,
And I definitely keep that. And if that fan is watching, you know who you are. It stays on my desk. It is always on my desk to remind me why I do what I do, and how much I appreciate every single one of my fans. Like some fans, they'll be quiet and they'll never say anything. And I love them just as much as fans like Lance, who shows up everywhere. I see you. Yeah, I love all of these people because they give me that inspiration to just keep making content and doing cool stuff.
yeah. Also, you can't let that doll out of your sight because I'm fairly certain it can be used to perform voodoo on you.
Probably. It's definitely got enough of my hair on it now because I molt, apparently. But you know what? Shalendor mentioned that it is best to get a hotel reservation a few years in advance for Gen Con. I have one. I don't know. Have I shared to you the story of the horror hotel?
No, no. I mean, so I've been there 3 times. Once, once with Ted, and the other once with my son, and then also I think Doug went I think Doug went all 3 times too. And like, if you get lucky and you get into the lottery to get a room, you can. But also, it was still like $1,000 for the room. So
Mm. So Guy, because we had arranged all this. Guy's friend from South Africa arranged for the rooms for us to stay in, and we stayed at a place. I want to say it's called the Clarion Hotel. Um, and I had no idea about it. I was just like, cool, just tell us what you need, and we'll forward accommodation money and stuff like that. When we arrived, it was such a bizarre experience. It's like no one had done anything to this hotel since like the 1920s. It was like old, the wallpaper was kind of like tearing. We went to these rooms that kind of felt like, like in movies when you see like those apartment buildings in like, those movies of like, uh this big hotshot lawyer is trying to build a strip mall and they want to buy your apartment from you, but you don't want to sell it because you're the gritty underdog. It felt like one of those houses, those apartments. And I was just like, okay, cool. I guess this is where we're staying. Sure, no worries. I went to breakfast. We had like this stuff that looked like it was just bought from the gas station nearby. We'll get to that little portion next. But I had planned to stay for the 3 days of Gen Con and then 2 days afterwards, just to do sightseeing and stuff like that.
Hmm.
On the last day, they basically told us that we're shutting down the hotel forever. And I was like, oh yeah, I've actually got 2 more days booked in. And they're like, oh, and they printed off something that said your hotel booking has been canceled, like in front of me. And I was like, what? Are you kidding me? It's like, yeah, no, no. Well, I want to speak to a manager. I want to speak to someone. It's like, well, actually, there is no manager. There's no staff here that will work as of X PM tonight.
Yeah.
There's no one being checked out. Nothing's happening. It's just as soon as that's gone, that's it. And the next morning it was so abandoned. The breakfast was just a box of donuts they'd bought from the gas station. So I was furious. I was like, oh my God, like you're literally shutting down the hotel while I'm staying in it. Like, holy crap. Like, okay, I guess. Um, so we went out on a late night retreat to go and try and find a hotel to stay in.
Yeah.
Because me and these other guys were just like we'd had enough, and ended up at a Roach Motel, which I didn't realize was people actually call motels hotels in America. It was not a thing I thought was a thing. So we went to a hotel that
Yeah.
was not a hotel. There were roaches everywhere, and we basically said, "Yeah, I'm not really gonna sleep in here." We're pretty sure that a lovely lady in the lobby was a street worker, and so we went, "Okay, cool. Let's move on to the next place." And eventually, we ended up at the Marriott because it was just like, you know what, screw it. I'm willing to just pay that much to have a good night's sleep. But when we arrived, it was like heaven and hell, right? Comparison. Like I was like, why didn't we do this for the convention? We showed up worn, haggard. The receptionist was so nice. She basically said, look, it looks like you've had a really long day. They were just closing up the bar, but we'll get them to make you a round of drinks before you go up to your room. And we're just like, this is just everything we wanted.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
reminds me of our LA trip. We had like a terrible experience with that as well, where it was like we got we it was like we had these weird directions to go pick up the rental car. It was like you had to go to this parking lot, this dark parking lot that the that like was attached to like a warehouse that was closed or something. And like we just waited there a while and no one ever showed up, so we decided to just go find a place because there was a bunch of them. And we eventually like found we went to a place and they're like, we don't have anything, but they connected us with someone else. And it was just like this dude, and he's like, here, come to my car and I'll take you to the place. And we just like it was like super sketchy. We're like, I don't know, we're gonna either go rent a car or we're going to get murdered. And then we go to the motel where we're staying, and they're like, yeah, we don't have anything. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have anything? I paid for the room already. Like I prepaid for it, and it's like, oh yeah, we rented it out everything. And he's like, well, we and then the guy was like, well, my boss has these like condos around the corner, and so he walks us down this like dark alley, and he's like going to like open the door, and then the air conditioner kicks on, so they realize like somebody's in there. And and then it's like, well, we can't do anything. And like you, like it was funny because it was one of the like few times I seen Ted like get really aggressive and mad at somebody because he's just like so Ted does not do well when he's hungry and tired. So he went like full on diva, and we're walking away from the room, and Ted is like, "Sir, why are you not on your phone with your boss right now?" and then he's like, "Well, I got another hotel, and it was like 45 minutes away." And it like when you say Roach Motel, yeah, it totally felt like that, except for it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. But for us, it was like 4 o'clock in the morning. And at that point, we just didn't care. Like Ted ended up doing some kind of like minor plumbing on the room that he was in because there was some problem with it, like the sink was dripping or something. Um, and then like the next day, we went back there and they tried giving us a hard time again. We're like, no, absolutely not. And then after we like finally connected with Satine, because we were out there to be on GM tips, she was like, "You are absolutely not going back there," and we ended up like staying with Satine, and not going back to there, and had to fight with them to get our money back. So I totally get the hotel motel horror stories, traveling horror
Oh yeah.
stories.
Oh, and you know what? Speaking of fighting to get a refund back, that's exactly what we
Yeah,
had to do. Because we showed up and we said, yeah, no, look, we booked it and stuff like that, but we definitely want a refund. We have not stayed in this room or anything. And
yeah,
they said, no, there's a no refund policy. I'm like, I don't see it anywhere. It's not listed on the website. It's not listed in here. It's like, yeah, there's no refund policy. I'm like, well, who's in charge? It's like, I'm in charge. It's like, cool, then give us a refund. You have no grounds here. And then the guy, like, because I was actually traveling with the two fans who had come with Guy on that last night, and they were getting so they like one of them was getting like super angry, so much so that the security officer, I say security officer, this big muscly dude in like flip flops, sort of shows up, and you can tell that he's used to kind of chucking people out, right? So, that's when I switched on my charm because a lot of people look at this and they kind of like expecting, a very different kind of speech pattern, let's
that's
just
it.
say.
Yeah,
So I walked up and I explained everything and I said, "Hey, listen, dude. This is what's happened over here. It's okay. We're not trying to get a refund or anything anymore because this guy is clearly either having difficulties understanding or comprehending this concept, or he's just being a dick. Whatever the case is, we don't want to start a fight. What we want him to do, however, is to acknowledge in some way, shape, or form that this hotel has a no refund policy, and that is what we've been told, so that we can go back to our insurance company and say." This has been true. Now, the guy at the front desk is not helping us at all. Like, he's saying he's not going to give us anything. He's not going to say anything. He's not going to sign anything. And I said, dude, you're here. If I put like the date and the time, would you be willing to sign this for us and just say, yes, this person said that? And he said, yeah, sure, man. And that was it. And there I am with this big burpy security guard. And we're all kind of like, even the security guard's kind of like, now he's on our side. Like, he's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, this guy, and he's like whispering to us, yeah, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, like, I was just like, dude, like, well, I didn't, like I said, naive, had no idea what I was getting into. But lessons learned, if you travel from Australia to the US, go business class. It's going to cost you extra, but if you're looking down the barrel of a 32-hour flight, just do it. Um, if you're staying in America, make sure you stay at a reputable hotel. Check to see if it's going to shut down before you have to check out. Uh, and of course, make sure that you phone up and you make sure that there is a refund policy on any place you decide to abjectly stop on the way, because that's
Yeah.
apparently a thing.
Our last PAX Unplugged, we did an Airbnb, and it was the penthouse. It was really nice. It was the eighth floor. After the first night, the elevator broke, and my wife was coming out to meet me the next day. And she had just had hip replacement surgery. So I'm like, well, there is no way we're doing 8 flights of steps. Like, I could barely do 8 flights of steps. We ended up having to get a hotel somewhere else, and again fight with getting our getting a refund. Although it wasn't as bad because it was through air, Airbnb. And I'm like, look, what are we supposed to do? And we end up spending a lot more money just to stay someplace else. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what? All you need at that stage is just like a toboggan, like just
Yeah,
down the flights of stairs.
getting down's easy.
Yeah.
If you're well known, Homer Simpson it all the way down. So we were like
Yep.
10 minutes past. Final thoughts before we head on out.
Um, Final thoughts. I think one of the big things nowadays is a lot of people underappreciate how easy it is to make friends online in this field with role playing games. There are a lot of people out there who are loving role playing games, but maybe too shy to talk or to introduce themselves and stuff like that. One of the big things I want to say is I live in a very unique world where every encounter I've had with people like yourself, Dave, like with Guy, like with the Viva La Dirt League people, every single individual has just come down to a simple "Hi, how are you? I'm this person." um, Always make sure that you keep yourself open to these experiences. The people that you respect are humans and they love what they do. They love meeting people. They love chatting and never be afraid to explore that and reach out and make these connections because sometimes it's one of the most rewarding things you'll ever do, even if it's just a single conversation. It's sometimes some of the best things you can do with your time.
Yeah, and even if they're not human in the TTRPG community, they're probably decent folks anyway.
That's very
Thanks for
true.
thanks for coming on, Michael. As always, links are in the description. And until next time, stay nerdy.